Oh my gosh. And maybe before the meeting, because not just for today, but all for anyway, just crazy thoughts. Okay, don't have to do it. It's just crazy thoughts.
Before we get started, I have a question for you guys. Trisha's not here. Is there any talented members of our club who know how to play the piano? Okay. That being said, any talented members who will start off our national anthem when we're ready? Come on, I know we got singers in this group. Not yet. Okay, perfect. So, we're going to get started, and we're going to start with our invocation led by Michael Murphy.
Perfect with the chimes going off. Let's pray together. Our holy God, in whom we live and move and have our very being, we thank you for this beautiful, gorgeous day, truly a change of the season that reminds us, Lord, of your presence all around us. We ask you to make the most of this time we have gathered here today to serve our fellow man, to be better equipped to do so. We ask you to bless the families that are represented here and help us all cling to you and your precious word. In the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose bright stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we marched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, shake us as our single banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, of the brave. Wake up.
Thank you. I kind of hide the microphone behind my back when I'm standing up here because I don't want my voice to be the problem voice of people on YouTube because they probably be hanging up on me right away. Courtney, do you want to come on up and introduce our guests?
Hello, y'all. We have a couple of guests today. One is a guest of Lee Montgomery, and her name is Tara Hinton, and she's the principal of Clarkson Elementary. And the next guest is Matt Rowan, and he is a guest of Terry Fields.
Thank you, Courtney. Actually, you want to stay up here and talk about David Lake and do our member spotlight? David?
We're doing member spotlight on Mr. Lake today. Mr. Lake, how long have you been a part of our Rotary group?
Since 1967,
Wow.
and this is the first time I've been back since March.
We are so glad that you're back. We welcome you back. What have you done professionally all these years?
Well, I'm an attorney.
All right.
December the 31st, I've practiced over 50 years here in East Texas, and I became inactive voluntarily to members. You know what that means to become inactive. I graduated because of my age. Matt, you know something about that. Anyway, and then I've been involved in other things.
Right. What are some of your hobbies and your interests that you may have been involved in?
Well, hunting, fishing, and then the Kyle Lake Foundation.
Yes, sir. Tell us about that.
Well, the club supports that every year. It's a Christian ministry, and we have awarded right at 100 scholarships to deserving students
Amazing.
through our golf tournament that we have every year, every spring. But this year it got canceled because of the virus. We have one in Waco as well,
Wow.
and it got canceled there because of the virus.
I know my son has attended your soccer camps that you have held.
Yes.
Of course, we haven't been able to do that this summer.
And we can have that this summer as well.
We haven't did that. Well, I appreciate you so much for coming up here. Thank you so much for your dedication to our club and for so long.
Let me say something about
Yes,
Rotary,
please do, please do.
because Rotary means a lot to me, although I've not been able to attend the last few months. Our children said, because of your age, you don't get out of the house. So they did all the shopping for us and bought our groceries
Good
and
kids.
took care of us. But now, since the virus is kind of going down, we're getting out more, which we enjoy.
Good. I'm so glad.
But Rotary is right up there. You know, God, family, and then your profession, of course, and then church, and then Rotary.
Absolutely. I do not think Bill Coates is in the building, so we won't have a sports moment. I actually put him on my agenda. I thought you were like, wow, I was like, Tom's in sync with me. You know, I missed last week. I was on vacation, and I really wish the weather would have been like this because I was going camping. If you guys recall, last Monday was a downpour. So I went Tuesday, and it wasn't too bad. But yeah, camping in a tent is no fun in a downpour. So,
What am I doing?
we have
Tell me what I do.
we've got some hints to get out. I know that.
John Gentry
And David.
and David Lake, can you come back up? Boy,
All right.
that's almost as good a hand as I would have. All right, what we are recognizing today is the advancement of these two fine individuals in their Paul Harris journey. And the first one is, okay, John Gentry, who is becoming a Paul Harris +1. Ta-da! And David Lake, whose years of support and service have earned him a Paul Harris +3.
David was, he's like, well, I didn't know about this. Actually, John, will you come back up, Tom's here so we can get a picture? You sold more than $1,000 as part of the spaghetti supper this year, and your name was drawn to receive the Paul Harris Fellow. That's how you got it. That's how you got it.
Feel free to write a check.
Yeah, you can write a check. Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Now you can go doing it. If I could have Vaughn come on up and Carol will come on up. They're going to talk to you guys about a couple of projects that we've got scheduled and that we're working on getting scheduled. So Vaughn is going to talk to us about World Polio Day.
Thank you very much. So, yeah, one of our biggest events is Polio Plus, and so we've been working on a way to do our part to raise funds for that. And so one of the things that Beth and I came up with is we talked to the folks that own Villa Montez, Montez Creekside, and White House, and 1836 on Old Jacksonville. Yes, sir. Up here, is that better for you? So they are going to open up 33 restaurants to allow us to come in, set up a table at each restaurant, hand out information, and hopefully collect donations from the patrons. As another portion of that, he is going to donate a portion of the revenue that comes in through those days. And basically what he's going to do is take an average of his average Thursday night, which we're going to do this on October 22nd at all three restaurants. And then whatever above and beyond that, he'll take a percentage and donate it back to us for Polio Plus. So our thought is that if all of you could show up and bring your family or any of your friends, also, please maybe take time to get on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, however you do it. Invite your family and friends to come up and show up and have a great dinner or even a lunch. And we really appreciate that, and hopefully we'll do very well for ourselves. But again, that's going to be on October 22nd at the three restaurants. And I'm going to ask Diane to help me with emailing all of you to remind you what days and what locations and the address where that's going if you don't know. Also, going to need some help in manning the tables in all three locations. So I've kind of crafted a sign-up sheet for all three locations. Each shift is about 3 hours. And so I've started off myself at 1836 for the dinner time, 5 to 8. So I'm going to send this around. If any of y'all can take your time and help, I'd really appreciate it. So, any other questions, ma'am?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, hey, thank y'all very much.
And most of you are familiar with the fact that Rotary, one of our biggest efforts worldwide, worldwide, is the eradication of polio. And if you keep up with our Facebook page, you'll see that Africa has recently been declared polio free. There's only 2 countries in the world that still have polio virus, and that's Afghanistan and Pakistan. So the Rotary has led the effort for years on this, and we have some matching money from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. But this is a really good opportunity. World Polio Day is Saturday the 24th, but our restaurant was not really interested in having us come in on Saturday, so we're going to do it on a Thursday night. And then, maybe there'll be some other opportunities for us to do something to actually celebrate World Polio Day on the 24th. Carol, do you want to come up and talk about East Texas Food Bank?
Our service project for October is going to be to collect canned goods for the East Texas Food Bank. So I'll need all of y'all to start next Monday bringing in your canned goods. We're going to collect, every Monday on October the 26th from 5:15 to 8:15 in the evening. We're going to go to the food bank and actually volunteer and help them out, probably before we pack boxes that they send to the schools for the children. So that's a good way for y'all to earn some community service hours that I'm sure we all need at this point in time with COVID going on. So if y'all would all bring in your canned foods and let's make this a real big project for our group, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Dalton, do you have anything else to add for that or any other service projects?
No, just excited to actually start with you guys doing something together. So
Yeah.
looking forward to that.
I definitely agree with that. I know that for me being president, one of my challenges this year is that we can't do a lot. We're limited in gatherings. We can't have a social event. We can't do some of the things that we usually would do. And so I'm really excited about this opportunity. I will tell you that I went to the food bank a couple of weeks ago with the district, and they are very cautious. They ask everybody to wear masks. They're very thoughtful about the process in regards to. In your bulletin that you received this week, there's some information about 2 upcoming training seminars, sessions that are actually free to attend and usually would have a cost associated with them. The first is coming up on October 10th, which is the Rotary Zone Summit, Taking Rotary by Storm. This is usually a 2 or 3 day event, usually held in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And it's free to attend. The link is in your bulletin if you're interested in joining in the training. It is all day on Saturday, October 10th. And then on October 31st, our district is holding their assembly, and it's also an online training. So I hope some of our members take advantage of that, so you don't have to travel, you don't have to spend the night anywhere. So please, if you need more information, let me know. Are there any other project announcements or any other Rotary-related announcements from the floor? Yes, Carol.
Today is the last day for the book drive.
Okay.
So if everybody has books, I have some, and I will be able to bring in, give those to her if anybody has any more.
Yes, Michael.
Madam President, this past Friday and Saturday, I think you were involved with me as well. We attended the Emerging Leaders Seminar on behalf of Rotary. That was my first online training for Rotary, and I thought it was extremely beneficial, especially for somebody who's still fairly new, because my work has all been with a local club. Never done anything outside of that, so it's really great getting that information. And I encourage as many of you as possible to be a part of the 5830 meeting. Then it's coming up to October 10th, is that correct?
October 10th is the zone. We're part of zone 3031, which is Lee. Tell us a little bit more about our zone area. Yeah. Like what distance, what it encompasses.
There are
Microphone.
16 districts in each zone, and together, well, of course, we've got 43 clubs in our district.
Lee.
Oh, yeah, use mine. Don't just hold it. So each zone is composed of 16 districts, and they pair the zones together with 3031. I don't understand that numbering system at all, because there's not that many zones in Rotary. But, and the zone leader is a director on the board of directors. There's not that many zones in Rotary, but, and the zone leader is a director on the board of directors at Rotary International. So, that's kind of the hierarchy. We go from club to district, district to zone, and zone has its training once a year. And usually it's a zone institute or zone summit, but not this year, it's going to be virtual.
Pass the hat, okay, yes. This is the last pass the hat we're doing for hurricane relief. So if you're interested in donating some funds towards hurricane relief, I know that the club is set aside a little bit of money to go along with it, and it's going to Sally, and what was the first one? Laura and Sally for sure, because those were two that were pretty devastating to our area. All right, well, that's all I have on the announcement, so I'm going to turn it over to Colleen to introduce our speaker.
Oh, let's see, you knew I was going to get to. Perfect.
Thanks, Colleen.
Okay, I am super excited, guys. I think this is a new program for us. Let me know if I'm wrong. We have Jeff Sparks with us today from the State Parks Wildland Fire Program Manager from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. He has a bachelor's degree in wildlife management and a master's degree in environmental sciences and forestry from Oklahoma State University. A lot of you are from out there. Jeff is a certified wildlife biologist through the Wildlife Society with more than 25 years of experience in planning and implementing prescribed fires in 3 different states and diverse habitat types ranging from pine hardwood forests to coastal prairie and a high desert. He has worked for Texas Parks and Wildlife since 1998 and currently oversees all wildland fire operations on Texas State Park managed lands. He has led more than 500 burns. That's a really big number. 500 burns on state park lands, and authored and co-authored more than a dozen peer-reviewed papers on fire effects, fuels, and fire behavior and fire history. Jeff and his wife Jennifer have 2 daughters, are active in their local community, hobbies, including coaching youth soccer, student ministry, which I can tell you that is a full-time job in itself, international ministry work, and herding cats, which he also calls firefighters. Give me a big round of applause for Jeff Sparks.
Thank you, Cody. So today I'm going to talk to you about kind of a management tool we use to prescribe fire, and how we use it to manage our East Texas forests. So it's important to remember kind of what our natural resource goals are for state parks. And so we're actually looking at protecting and restoring habitats and natural communities and landscape on parks and historic sites. And when we look at restoring these and maintaining these, we're trying to take them back to pre-settlement times. So we have different objectives in many of you. If you own property, you probably look at timber value, wildlife value, and things like that. Whereas on our state park, we're trying to make our communities resemble what they would have looked like prior to settlement, so about the 1850s. This is a current structure, sorry the layer is kind of bad, of what many of our East Texas forests look like. Very dense understory, as you can kind of see. There's a very high tree density and a very high canopy level. And this develops this dense understory, mid-story level. And there's very few herbaceous species on the ground. Herbaceous, I mean grasses and wildfire, as you can see. And the reason there's very few on the ground is that all the sunlight is being intercepted before it actually reaches the ground. We also have a lot of invasive species that kind of choke out the understory and prevent that sunlight from reaching the ground. These problem species include yopon, Chinese privet, sweet gum, American beautyberry, greenbrier, and others. Now, many of us probably have not looked back and read kind of some of the historical accounts, but many of the historical accounts here in East Texas describe the area as being an open forest with somewhat clear woods and hills and ravines. Some of the literature actually describes how you could ride a 4-horse carriage through the woods with no problem. And if you guys have ever driven outside of town here and looked, it's very dense and it's unlike that. And it's hard to imagine that. Many explorers to the area describe the piney woods as being park-like with a distinct herbaceous and grass-covered ground. under kinds of mixed oaks. And Nuttall and his exploration in the 1890s is especially interesting because Nuttall was actually a botanist. And so he described kind of the northeast Texas and northwestern Oklahoma, or northeastern Oklahoma and southwestern Arkansas. He kind of went right through that area. He described as bare, serrated hills, scattered with pine and post oak ridges, thinly scattered with pines and oaks. So he described it as very open park-like. This is a picture actually taken in southwestern Arkansas, which right over the border from Texas, and this is kind of what is believed that the area looked like. And so, as you can see here, the pine trees are very widely spaced. You can also see on all the pine trees there's black marks in the lower ground where they've been burned frequently. Because there's an open canopy cover, it's allowed a distinct herbaceous, like I described, is kind of what we're shooting for, with many wildflowers, grasses, and such. And there are oaks and scattered hardwoods in the story, but they're kind of widely scattered. This is another site. This one I got from the Texas Forestry Museum, and this was actually in East Texas. Once again, if you consider pretty dense stocking or pine, actually, due to frequent fire, their understory is going to have to be cleaned up, and it's pretty open grasses. So what caused the drastic change from this open understory, grassy understory, kind of where we are now, what we see? Well, at the time of settlement, it was looked upon as, oh, there's so many pine trees, there's no way we could ever run out of them. There's always going to be enough. And there was a lot of land change and abuse going on. This picture here shows a common practice that occurred called turpentining. All these barks have been stripped, and they captured the sap after the turpentine. The area was logged, and an initial logging actually had little thought to regeneration. It was like, there's so much forest, there's no way we're going to go through it all. And so no one actually thought, well, we should be planting our species, we should be managing the forest to actually regenerate itself. Because the thoughts were, we were never going to run out. Here's another thought. Once it was logged, many of the areas were converted to crops. Cotton was very common in this area. Corn and other things like that were very common. So here's a cotton field. And then livestock were brought in. And livestock, many areas were converted from actually a forest structure to more of a grassland structure for the grazing of livestock. And then, kind of a transition with settlement. What do you think all these settlers built their houses out of? Wood. What does fire do to wood? It burns it down. So at the time of settlement, then the settlers quickly began fighting fires because fire was bad to them. It was a threat to their homes. And so this is one of the earliest fire trucks. As you can see, they have barrels on the back, and they're actually, it says on there, grow more timber, prevent fires. And that was kind of the thought, that if we stop all the fires, that we'll be able to grow more timber because fires do kill trees, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit. So we had lookout towers, so we could actually stop fire quickly. This is a large pine tree with a tower. They built a ladder up and a tower on the top. And then along came the best acting campaign ever, probably still is, and that's Smokey Bear. No one can deny Smokey. And when Smokey got involved with banding, and you have the raging fire going through, and wildlife going through, it got to everyone's heart. And so everyone changed on what their thoughts were about fire, or actually grew stronger that fire was bad, all fire was bad, all fire was bad. And so a lot of fire was actually suppressed and fought as quickly as it could be. Another Smokey shot. And it led us to the current structure we have today. Once again, lots of pine trees out there, lots of oak trees out there, and just a very dense understory. Versus the historic structure that I showed you a little bit ago. Now, how do we go from this current structure to the historic structure. Well, in state parks, this is kind of our common goal and things we're looking at. First of all, you got to look at your natural disturbances. And so in East Texas, fire, both ground and crown fires, occurred at relatively high frequency historically. So that would be before settlement. They were very common. Windstorms and tornadoes cause even age stands. An even age stand would be where all your trees are basically the same age. And these were moderate frequencies. And then hurricanes and tropical storms were up in this area where low frequency. And then extended drought leads back to severe wildfires, which once again can create even age stands as well. So it's important to realize kind of from what I built on here a little bit, fire's natural. It's a major ecological disturbance, and it occurs in many ecotypes throughout the world. In fact, in Texas, outside of many of our very aquatic sites, fire is a natural disturbance and occurs at different frequencies. So fire in conjunction with other environmental factors, such as topography, climate, create a mosaic of pre-settlement communities, including grasslands, forests, savannas, and brushlands. Now, to think about a little bit, how frequent was fire historically? You know, I talked about it was frequent, and let me kind of talk about that a little bit. This is a lightning strike map. And lightning is only one ignition source for a natural cause fire facility. But this is a lightning strike map to kind of show you the density of strikes of fire. As you can see, Florida by far has the most lightning strikes of any state in the nation. But if you follow along the East Coast, along the Gulf Coast, and into East Texas is not too far behind Florida in the number of lightning strikes. Now this is a very interesting map here. This is a map that's from the University of Missouri, where they've done a lot of research. They've looked at tree chronology, where they've gone looked at trees, they've aged them, and they've looked at fire stars inside those trees and been able to date how frequently they occur. They've also looked at climate data. And this is kind of their return interval, what they feel like a natural return interval these sites actually have. And so if you look at Texas, in fact, the researchers I've become pretty good friends with them over the last 10 years, they call this the flaming tongue. Because this area that reaches from the Gulf Coast back up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, historically burned less than 2 years. Closer up, okay. More frequently than 2 years returning. So that means the same piece of land typically would burn as frequently once every 2 years. And then if you reach over to East Texas, it was more on a 2 to 4 year return. So this is a study where I kind of became pretty good friends with the researchers from the University of Missouri. This is the Furnace Creek State Park. It's about an hour west of Tyler. And we actually went and dated some trees. I kind of met this researcher at a conference, and he was talking about how he was looking for a place with old trees in East Texas. And I happened to know a spot that I thought some trees were pretty old. And, you know, I talked to him. I said, hey, you can come sometime. I wasn't really thinking. The next week he called me and said, hey, can I come this week? And he was from Missouri, and we met in Florida the week before. So I said, sure. And so he was able to date trees back. I probably should have brought them with my office number. Trees were great. All the way back to the 1600s. So there were trees at Furnace Creek that date back to the 1600s. And without cutting any live trees, all we looked at were trees that were on the ground or dead trees that were standing. We went around there, we cut trees, and he was able to date that. And each line you see going across this way is a different tree. Each line you see going this way or tick mark going across that was an individual fire. And so he was able to date from 1690 and create a fire history from 1690 to present of this given site of about 10 acre site. And so from that time period, the average return interval between 1690 and 1820, which we consider kind of maybe the early time of settlement, he had a return interval of about 6.7 years. So about, on average, a fire back to this given piece of land about 6.7 years. But if you look at some of these actually came back as frequently as 2 years. And in fact, there was one time, one tree that had fire started for 2 years. They literally had a fire and the next year another fire. What's also really important to note here is the last fire he recorded was in 1919. And from 1919 until present, this site has never had a fire.
Wow.
And so this would be common in many of our East Texas areas, that you're looking at 70, 80, 90 years without fire. Hence, we get the contender story that then stock behind trees and oak trees in places. So this is another fire study that he did in the Kisatchie National Forest, which is just over in Louisiana, probably within 45 miles of the Texas-Louisiana border. And here, in a more of a long-leaf savanna type, he was able to document a median fire interval between 1650 and 1905 of 2.2 years. So if you get kind of more into the longleaf where there was more herbaceous material and things to carry fire, fires occurred as frequently as every 2 years. And ironically, his range was he had one tree or one group of cluster of trees that were burned twice in 1 year. And you might ask, how is that even possible? Well, if the first fire was intense, would have ground out those needles, those would have been hit the ground, and then later on, probably come back through and have a fire again. So with fires like this, you were going to have an extremely open structure, kind of like what I was going. So prescribed fire is the tool I'm going to kind of show you, and we're going to use a couple of different parks as case studies, but I'm primarily going to focus on Tyler State Park since we're close to Tyler here in a little bit, and I'll be able to show you what we've done with the Tyler State Park in about 22 years of working up there. So prescribed fire is literally only one management tool that we use in state parks, but it's probably our most common because it's our most cost effective. And the way we do a prescribed fire is we set, we identify our area we want to burn, we put a fire break around that area. This fire break might be going out and raking, it might be bringing a dozer in, it might be using roads or power lines, things like that. We try to be, on our state parks, most of them are pretty small size, we try to be as least invasive as possible. But when we're burning up close to property boundaries, we jump road and use a dozer. We then light it on the downwind side, let the fire kind of burn into our fire break, and we just slowly widen it into the wind. And it takes a full day to kind of get enough black, and then you just keep getting bigger and bigger burning fire black. So that's kind of prescribed fire. It's called prescribed because you're setting a prescription for it. When we burn, we have a set temperature, wind speed, relative humidity, atmospheric stability, wind direction, so that we don't have any smoke intrusion on neighbors, so we don't smoke any highways, and also so that we meet our objectives. So we know we want to get a certain fire intensity to control that wood inventory, but we want to keep it safe where we can actually control it with our staff. So using prescribed fire management, it's not a silver bullet. And so oftentimes when I visit with park superintendents, they get all excited. I basically tell them what I just told you, and they're like, all right, yes, come burn. And they're thinking after one fire, it's going to look like those historic photos I showed you. And it's not quite the case. You know, it took 50, 60, 70, 80, even 100 years of fire suppression to get to where we are now. And it's going to take time to take it back. So what I tell them is restoration is a process. In fact, Tyler State Park is one of the sites where we can actually start seeing much of what we want to see compared to some of our other sites. But many of the areas in Tyler State Park have been burned 7, 8, 9 times in the last 20 years. Whereas many of our other parks only had 1 or 2 cycles. So many people ask, well, what about the trees? And aren't you killing them? Aren't you killing all the pine trees? It's just going to be a grassland. Well, not necessarily, because these trees have evolved in this system, and they're adapted to fire. We just talked about how fires are natural occurrence. Fire occurred here historically. Fire occurred here before European settlement. And so these trees do have this adaptability. Along pine, which we don't have in the Tyler area, but you go just south of here about 80 miles, you start picking up long pine in the Bluffing area. It's probably the most adapted species. That's also the species that was most common in that one study I told you that burned on average every 2 years. Longleaf, once they get established at about this height, and these are less than knee high here, I can run a fire as hot as I want totally defoliate them. You think you just killed them, they look like little burned up little twigs out there. And then they come back almost immediately with looking lush and green. And so here it is, same site, just a couple months later, and you can see how they're coming right back from that. These dead twigs you see here, these are loblolly pine. We were actually trying to kill those. That was our objective, was to kill the loblolly. And so shortleaf pine, shortleaf is the one we have right here. We also have loblolly pine. Shortleaf pine is a native pine up on your dry upland sites, and it occurred on our ridge tops and our slopes. And loblolly only historically occurred in river bottoms, creeks, and areas where it's kind of steep where being protected from fire. Shortleaf pine actually resprouts. So this is a young shortleaf pine. You can see the stem that comes up here, and then after the fire, it burned it all the way down to the ground, but then it resprouts actually from the stems. And it can, the next time it'll be a little taller, and it'll survive, and then eventually it gets where they have to resprout through fire. Now, loblolly pine, as I showed you those dead ones, it does not survive fire very well, because historically, it did not belong in the upland where fire occurred. So this is the site. This is actually Lake Tawakoni. This is not exactly where we're trying to go, but it's kind of similar. This is not what's similar to the historic site we're talking about. We have an open canopy cover, kind of a grassland. We have some woody species in the mid-story, but it's not totally like. This is kind of what we're going for, and kind of structure we're going. I can't take credit for this one. This one actually happened to have wildfire hit it 2 or 3 times within about a 15-year period, and that's what caused that. I can't take credit for some of these next ones though. So this is at Curtis Creek State Park. This is October of 2000. As you can see, there's very little to no grass in the understory, pretty dense understory and mid-story woody species. And at this time, you're only seeing about 8.1 stems of herbaceous per meter squared. So in an area about this big, you only have 8 stems popping out. After one prescribed fire, and a year later, we have about 35 stems. Not a lot. It's not really covered in grass, but we've drastically increased compared to what it was. This is actually at Fairfield Lake State Park. Once again, on the left, you can see dense understory, and then on the right, I think this was about a year after burn. You can see that we've opened up the understory. We're starting to get some sunlight reaching the ground. Not our goal, but remember it's a process. This is back at Curtis again. This is the site that's been burned twice now. And so, once again, very low herbaceous stems. When you come back over here, you're starting to see a lot of grass pop up on the understory, a lot of sunlight that's able to reach the ground. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Tile State Park. So this site, I'm going to show you all these photos from the exact same, shoot from the exact same direction, and it's going to span about 20 years. And there's been 7 different burns on the site in 20 years. So this was the site taken originally in, I think, 2000. And this site at this time had not been logged. So in 2001, we actually logged the site and we started burning it quite frequently. And this is kind of what it looked like a couple years ago. A little bit, if you look here, this is species richness. Species richness is the number of herbaceous species we might find in that plot. And so when we started in 1999, 2000, before we opened the canopy cover up and started burning, there was between 0 and 2 stems or species found in the individual plot. The thing initially sent a big rush up, as you can see, like that, and then you see how it zigzags like this. What do you think is causing that?
Drought?
No. What I tell you is the fire, it removes that understory. So every time you see a high point, we just burn right there. It happens almost identical. So every time you see a high point, we just burn, and then the woody understory starts growing up and starts choking it out. And the number of species goes down, we burn again, and it goes back up. And that's pretty consistent like that. Here's the total herbaceous stems. This is the number of stems in a plot. Once again, there's literally like 5 stems, 5 stems in a plot, and now on average we're running over 1,000. And some plots are even pushing 2,000 stems per plot. So here we go to take a little kind of history to it. So this side, at this point, had been thinned, or no, it had not been thinned. This is pre-thinning. 2000, we had only 8.4% vegetation cover. So vegetation cover would be the amount of ground covered by herbaceous vegetation. Only 8.4%. So in 2001, after we logged it, we were up to 16.9% vegetation cover. And then in 2002, as you can see, there's a lot more light reaching the ground. We're up to 45.8% vegetation cover. In 2 years, we've gone from 5 species to 24 species present. And then in 2003, we had 26 species, we're up to 56% vegetation cover. 2004, we're still holding right around 25 species, but we're up to 72% vegetation cover. 2005 was a drought year. 2005, vegetation cover dropped a little bit, down to about 62%, but our species richness actually increased up to 31. 2006, we're kind of here. You can see also it's been a couple of years since we burned. Here it's been 21 months since we burned. See the dense underscore started to create. So our species covers, it went up a little bit. Species richness kind of dropped over 31 to 24 because of that. This is now 33 months. Originally, when we had these sites, we thought, okay, let's burn on a 3-year return. And we learned pretty quickly that 3 years is not frequently enough because our detrimental species here that causes all my problems, what I never thought about is American blueberry. Many of us planted our gardens that it literally, in a year, can grow this tall and it just chokes everything out around it. And I've tried everything I can to kill it without fire, like herbicides and things like that, and survive. So this is where it was grown. You can see where we kind of burned it back up to 30 species here. So you can see it starts to burst back up and our species richness goes down. It's kind of same thing here, and then it's burned again. Kind of there in 2011. 2011 is not a fair year to compare anything on because we were in extreme drought in 2011. So we went from a species richness of 30 down to 18, which is it's just primarily due to that drought. And then kind of fast forward just a little bit to where we are today. After about 6 burn cycles, we started to really notice a difference. And so if you look in 2018 here, now we're getting control of our American blueberry. We're burning frequently enough we are. We're now up to 83% vegetation cover. Remember that we started off with about 8% vegetation cover. We still only have about 30 species in there, but we're up to that percentage vegetation cover. And in 2019, this last year, it's been 20 months since it's been burned, but there's still a lot of sunlight reaching the ground. And we're up to 92% vegetation cover in 30,000 species. So that's a case study there at Tyler, where we've been taking annual data for over 20 years now. Now, if you're a landowner, burning a site for 20 years may not be quick enough for you. So there's other pieces of machinery out there that can speed up the restoration process. This is a mulching machine. It's mounted kind of on a skid steer, and it can get you quick return. It's very, very, very expensive. So this is a plot at that's Curtis Creek State Park in 2009, and then there it is right after. That's the same shift. That's the same photo looking the same direction, and that's with that machine. This is Fort Boggy State Park in 2007. This is it in 2011. You can't see those trees in this photo. They're there, but you can't see them. It looks like this. So, those are kind of some of the techniques we're using to restore our East Texas forests. Fire, like I said, is our #1 technique. But with that, I'd be happy to dig a little deeper with any questions. Yes, sir.
Do you find that the overgrowth is choking out a lot of the wildlife and not being able to come into race, we're moving on, or?
Do you have a species of wildlife in mind?
Deer, deer's probably can probably go through more, but they like to have the open grazing.
Yeah, they can. So deer are browsers, and they love it after we burn, because what we do is, in that understory, everything's kind of decked. If the site hasn't burned in 20, 30, 40 years, or been mowed, or mulched, or something, all their groceries are now moving up here. And also, all the groceries are now getting hard. What happens with woody stems as they age? They get hard and crunchy. Well, the deer are eating on the woody stems, they're browsing on them. So they love it after a fire, because a fire actually makes them fresh, young, and shoots. It also actually increases their food protein and actually more forms. White-tailed deer actually love it after fires, and it also brings the groceries down where they can reach.
But if we don't clear it out, then there's nothing for them to.
Correct. So as far as they're not going to like, it's not going to be where you don't have any deer in there, but you will have more deer if you burn it or clear it or do something like that to get the groceries with it. So I mean, there'll still be deer in the thick woods, but not as many. Yes, sir.
I know sometimes firefighters use chainsaw to cut down the trees.
Yes, sir. We use chainsaws quite frequently, kind of cut down trees. We use them to create fire breaks, and usually before we burn, we'll go through with chainsaws and cut all the dead snags along the area. Yeah, so that they don't pose a hazard when we're burning.
I didn't see any pictures of the actual burn process, but I guess I just pictured, you guys lighting it and walking away, but it's not that easy. I mean, it's more, can you describe it a little bit?
Yeah, so, this picture here is the unit I'm trying to burn, and the wind is blowing down this way. So we would start on this side, and there would be a fire break like on here, and we would start on this side and let the fire just kind of burn break. Is it safe? We just get a little bit wider, a little bit wider, a little bit wider. And then we'll have a crew going on each side, working their way up to what we call sensitive fire. We go off the top.
So does it go for more than a day?
So typically, a fire, we will burn it out in a day, but we will have staff to go out there and monitor and sit on it for 2 days, 3 days, a week, sometimes 2 weeks. It depends how quick it burns out. Yes, sir.
The picture that you showed of the machine
Yes.
that goes in there to clear, maybe my perception is off, but it just looked like that it does a better job than the fire.
I'm not going to deny that the initial appearance after it goes through there does look a little nicer than the fire. The fire is leaving a lot of dead stalks and stick-ups. The thing about that is that's immediately after that machine goes through there. And over time, those woody things are going to continue to grow. So unless you treat it with fire or somehow go in and mow it or do something, it's going to go back and look brushier than even before. And like I tell some people, anytime you want to control an understory, be ready. And be ready to stick with it, because it's not a one-time treatment. And if you go through that machine and do it one time, say right now this year, 5 years from now, it's going to be worse than when you started, because you make everything mad almost. It's like that vegetation just comes back thicker. But it does initially look cleaner. The thing you can't see when you walk around out there, though, is all the mulch. You can't see in the picture. Just thick mulch. So sometimes it stops the grasses and stuff from growing. You also got to think that to treat that, you're looking at $800 to $1,000 per acre on the low end, sometimes up to $2,500 an acre. And I can typically burn a site for $30 to $40 an acre. So significant difference.
Is that typically what real estate developers?
Yes, sir.
When they're building
Yes, sir. It looks a lot more appealing when you see it like that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Talking about the California wildfires, they've been criticized for improper management. I guess you guys studied what happens in other places, but what would you say they've done wrong or could have done better?
Well, yeah, I'm not really up to speed on California But in general, I would say they have a very large state. Their weather is very interesting. So what they're dealing with right now is, so like here, a low humidity for us is 35, 40%. When they get this time of year, September, October, November, it's common for them to get 4, 5% humidity and 40 to 50 mile per hour winds, the St. Anne winds coming through. So a lot of people will say, well, they should be doing more prescribed fires. I'm not going to deny that they probably do need to be doing more prescribed fires, because that's an aspect of prescribed fire I didn't touch on. It does significantly reduce the fuel load. And I could take this picture, this presentation in another direction, and show you wildfires that we've had on state parks that have run into a state park we burned and just gone out. But you got to think about the acres and how many acres can you treat with prescribed fire. With rough topography, it's easy to sit here in East Texas and say, yeah, they should burn more, and we have pretty much flat topography here. We can pretty much take equipment everywhere. And if you look at where the wildfires are occurring, it's in mountainous terrain. It's not quite like you could put a fire break all the way around a given site. And so maybe you can go into 100 or 200 acres, but really you're not even making a difference in the scope or scale. And then also the culture is a little different. So southeastern culture, from basically Texas to Florida, prescribed fire is a very accepted practice. California, not so much so. And so there's a culture difference to deal with there.
Time for one more question.
What about the culture in Colorado? Yeah, I go up there and I see all these forests there. Is that fine business?
It's the same thing. So like I said, it's easy for me to sit as a fire manager in Texas and Oklahoma and Louisiana. Those are 3 of my primary states I've worked in. And it's flat. And I can usually fall back a little ways and be able to put a bulldozer line in, or I can fall back to a road. And also, we're very dissected in a large forest area. We have a lot of roads and lakes and rivers. And if you go to Colorado, it's up and back down and up and back down, and you don't really hit a genuine fire break. Also, they've found themselves in a situation now where they haven't been doing prescribed fire, and they have such volatile fuels, different species of trees where the branches go all the way down to the ground. It's pretty quick and easy to go to a crown fire. Well, here in East Texas, a pine tree generally, it's up there 100 foot, but its first branch may not be for 60 feet. And so I can get a 25, 30 foot flames going in a 100-foot pine and not crown out and create a crown fire. They kind of can't, because they have what we call ladder fuels that go up top. So they have to look at different prescriptions. We talk about and I think that's the challenge in both California and Colorado. When we look at our prescriptions, they have a harder time getting in a prescription that meets their objectives, but still is controllable.
What are you doing as far as trying to control the cedar? We have more and more cedar in this country, seems like what we had years ago. It's so invasive, it takes a lot of water out of the soil. Are you doing anything besides fire to try to control it?
We are. So and juniper or cedar is much more common and common of a problem in our hill country area and out in West Texas. We're doing a lot of hand cutting of it. We're doing a lot of mulching that machining saw. Sometimes we'll have it go through and then we'll start burning. The nice thing about cedar is that it does not resprout and come back. If you can burn it and kill it, it's dead. And so once you get it down and you get the grass going and you start frequently burning, then it keeps that cedar in check.
Well, thank you so much. And I think Tom DeWitt's going to have you draw a number out of here for us for our not gambling roundlets. I know I've been out in Tyler State Park before when they've just been wrapping up all those burns. It's kind of interesting because you see little things still smaller, and it's kind of neat. What you got, Tom?
The number is 5128.
Not me. 5128. Colleen. All right. Speaker, along with the person who's replacing, I apologize, I don't know his name. Scott Martinez. Thank you, Nick. It's nice to see some faces we haven't seen in a while. Carl, welcome. Carl Watson for the new members. Carl's been a long-term member of our club. You've been president before too, right? Yeah, he's been a past president, so we haven't seen him in a while, so it's good to see Carl here. As we wrap up today, I just, when I did my installation speech. I talked about Rotary opens opportunities. That's the theme this year. And one of the things I mentioned was the opportunity to grow. And I talk about that from a club perspective of opportunity to grow, not just increasing our membership, but also making our club stronger. But I'd like to encourage all of you to take the opportunity to grow individually by attending some of these training sessions that I talked about a little while ago. Lee, how much does it cost to go to the Zone Summit? How much is registration usually? No, not this year, usually. Yeah, usually. Roughly.
$300-400.
$300-400.
Registration only.
Registration only. Then there's hotel rooms and your transportation there, which is drivable, but there's still transportation there. So this is an opportunity to get this training for free. All it's going to cost you is your time. It is all day on Saturday, the 10th. I think it's from 8 to 3:30 or 8 to 4. So it's an all-day thing. You know, there is a lunch break in there, so you get to take a little bit of a break. But this is also, as Michael mentioned, and he and I were on a training on Friday and Saturday, it's an opportunity to hear from Rotarians from other parts of the state, Louisiana, Oklahoma, where else? Alabama? I don't remember. So yeah, it's an opportunity to interact with other folks across our zone, as well as the one on the 31st is people who are right down the street from us, people who are in Athens or Marshall, Jefferson, Cedar Creek Lake. I mean, they're all over. There's the opportunity to meet folks that you've never had, and you don't have to go anywhere for it. It just costs you your time. So I really hope that you consider participating in one and or both of these.